Since I was 14 or 15, I would go to the desert races, or I'd go to Off-Road Expo or any event, and I would, the trucks that would really get my attention, I would always kind of look under them. I'd get down on my hands and knees and kind of scope what's going on, and I always would see Tubeworks housings, rear axles. And Tubeworks has been just the staple of a high-end axle housing. And with this vehicle, it not only is something that it needs, but the craftsmanship with Tubeworks housings, I think it's unmatched. And the passion and the quality of the welding and the design and everything in general with that housing, it's a perfect match for this truck.
I'm Jason Miles. I'm the founder of Tubeworks Incorporated here in Riverside, California. Early 2000s, maybe late 1999 or so, I was good friends with the Husemanns, Rick Husemann, Danny Husemann, and I had a passion for the off-road industry, had a Prerunner I built for myself, and it just kind of escalated. I started building bumpers for certain people. And that's where the name Tubeworks came from, bumpers and roll cages, and started to do higher end parts. Our first rear ends went to like Kurt Leduc. He was actually my very first professional racing customer besides the Husemanns. So when I was in college and my first career before I actually launched Tubeworks, it kind of parlayed at the same time. I was a structural inspector. I worked at UCLA for about 10 years. My expertise was in metallurgical sciences. That's where I kind of transitioned what we're doing with the rear ends. So there's conventional materials. You have the 4130s, you can heat treat 4130. But we developed a system where we have multiple hardnesses of the rear end part itself. So our tubes are at one hardness, the faceplate's at one hardness, the sheet metal structure's at one hardness. Those hardnesses are optimized based on material thickness and carbon content. So, and then also the welding procedures. So we use multiple filler metals to weld these joints to maximize the toughness of the joint and also try to meet the strength, the base metal strength of the weaker point joined to it. So if you have one part that has this tensile strength and one part that has this tensile strength, your filler metal joint needs to at least match this or exceed the lowest point of the two metals coming together. So that was years of development of doing that, seeing just the cycles of fatigue on these rear ends, the impacts they take. So I feel we've really taken that product line to almost the pinnacle. We're doing one more thing here over the next year, which we're not going to disclose what that is, but we're going to move the bar up one more point too. That I've wanted to do for several years, and we're excited about it. So that's coming up soon. So one thing that's key with our housing assemblies is that where the third member unit actually bolts to the housing itself, where that surface is, where the bolt holes are, that is machined 100% after all the welding is done on the rear end product. So it doesn't matter how big of an I-beam you bolt the thing to, how thick of a fixture plate you bolt the faceplate to. Welding, going from liquid metal to solid metal, shrinks. There's stresses involved in that. So no matter what you do, it's going to distort and put tension and move those critical dimensions. And that's why I want to say it's probably 6 or 7 years ago, we shifted to fully machined faceplates after all work is done. That way it ensures that the gear carrier drops into it. We've seen a large failure rate of product years ago when you're dealing with a rear end assembly where the faceplate is crowned after being welded on, and you bolt a gear carrier down, and it actually will move the bearing towers in or out. So that distorts the position of the ring and pinion, causing adverse wear.
Something that always stands out with a Tubeworks housing when I see them is the welds. Not just, you know, the color of them, but the quality and how consistent everything is. It's near perfect every single time, everywhere you look on that axle housing. Tyler, the welder for Tubeworks, he's been one of my friends just via, you know, social media for 8 years or so, and we've followed each other and you know, appreciated each other's craft. So to work with Jason and Tyler on this project is awesome, and I'm super happy to have them on board.
I want to say Tyler showed up at my shop with a friend. It's been so long ago, I honestly can't remember. I'm getting old. But it was at the very infancy of our business when we were starting to build rear ends. I believe he was still in high school or just coming out of high school. Had some good TIG welding skills at the time. I was doing all the welding at that time, so he was a great person to kind of mentor, and the kid has just ran with it. He's been with me for the whole time here. Always pushes the envelope for how the quality, the pride that he puts in everything. Like, he gets pissed off when customers call, "Where's my rear end?" "Well, it's going to take this long, and that's what it's going to be. I'm not going to do a job less than the best." So there's been always that level of pride and craftsmanship with him. So he's always constantly trying to find ways to improve his part, improve what he's doing, and he's been an absolute asset to our business.
You know, those things evolve over the years. You know, kind of when you sit down and you're getting comfortable with, you know, like I think it starts with what you want to see, you know, what your final result you want it to be. And that's kind of like how things are, how they've evolved to where they are now. You know, don't like seeing start and stops in places, you know, like seeing things flow. You want to be able to look at it and stare at it, not look at it and like, oh, you know, cringe when you're looking at it. People are paying good money for it, and that's why you want to give something they're going to appreciate. And that's definitely a lot of the motivation that makes you make that process. You know, you watch guys like Bryce Menzies or, you know, Rob Mack rip through the desert and just ripping on them, and you watching them push the trucks and just watching the engineering marvels they are just come to life. You know, everything that is great about desert racing. It's a fun sport to be in. You got to enjoy it. It's you got to be passionate about it. You got to be. It'll take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from you if you let it.
So through Tyler, through this whole process, in developing the heat-treated rear ends, welding the multi-hardness components, Tyler's really perfected the signature look that we put out there with that bronze goldish finished weld. It's a combination of stainless and a few other alloys, proprietary stainless material. It's high strength stuff, but there's so much skill that's needed to maintain that color, the consistency, the cost of these rear ends, and the amount of labor in each one of these. It's weeks sometimes for these housings, and the dollar amount when the customer picks it up, when he sees it, it is a piece of artwork. I mean, it's the pride and joy of this person that put this thing together and spent weeks on it, and it wants to look the part. Right. It's a whole different category than something that's welded and ground down smooth. So it's a different level, and that's where we've always maintained that signature look that we've kind of built through the years.